Are you feeling overly serious in life right now? Maybe you're hesitant or indecisive because you're reacting out of fear, which, you know what, a lot of us do when times get challenging and uncertain. Well, Ambitious Vet, in this episode with Nick Ripplinger, president of Battle Sight Technology and author of Frontline Leadership, you're going to walk away with the golden grenades needed to live with a more lighthearted approach to life and give yourself permission to make mistakes while leading the way in your next big project in life.
Think back to the basic training days where you're just terrified of these, NCOs who are screaming and yelling at you. How effective was that? At least I know for me, I was just knocking out push-ups, not paying any attention to what the hell they were saying. And it's a little different in the business world, but if you lead with fear and people are terrified to make mistakes and terrified to bring you mistakes, you're missing out on hundreds of opportunities.
If you served as a member in the United States Armed Forces and you're seeking your next big challenge in life, aka employment, or maybe you're a military-friendly employer looking to find thousands of dollars in tax write-offs for hiring military. Well, if that sounds like you, let Veteran Tax Credits support. Their mission is to assist you as a veteran with the process by helping you get pre-certified for this veteran tax credit. And if you are an employer, just making sure that you have the software in place to take advantage of the high-powered military talent that exists. You see, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit allows employers to benefit by selecting candidates from target groups such as veterans, disabled veterans, and other non-veteran groups. Over $1 billion in tax credits are dispersed each year by the WOTC program. As a veteran, not only does your time and dedication qualify you as a high-quality candidate, these veteran tax credits make you even more desirable for employers looking to hire veterans. Now, if you're listening to this and you are a veteran, they offer a free pre-certification process on their website at no cost to you, bridging the gap between you and other military-friendly organizations that are ready to hire you. Now, if you are an employer, I still charge you and encourage you to go check out veterantaxcredits.com and register. Choose the level of services you desire to start claiming your hidden veteran tax credits today. Visit www.veterantaxcredits.com. If you are an employer, make sure to enter in coupon code AVNetwork at checkout, and let's continue to have veterans be seen as strategic assets in the marketplace. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris Hoffman. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here, I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, and growth-minded military veterans on the planet, with one mission in mind, and that is to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through to new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after stability is no longer a challenge to overcome. So, Ambitious Vet, if you haven't already, buckle up. It's time to grow and advance in your life.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We're right back inside the trenches with Nick Ripplinger. He is a former Army soldier in operations of NCOIC. He's also a best-selling author of Frontline Leadership, and he's the president of Battle Sight Technologies LLC, and also, more importantly, he's a father. Nick, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, man. It's an absolute honor, man. I know that we have mutual friends with Bennett Tanton and a few other guys, man. And I spotted you on social media just doing what you do. And one thing I've noticed about you, man, regardless of who's watching, you're always doing the work. And I think that speaks volumes of your character and your leadership style. So I'm excited to unpackage kind of your mindset around leadership and, just how we can have a more lighthearted approach towards life during these serious times. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. There are serious times here, but you can't lose yourself in the process as well.
Yeah, man, totally. So, yeah, man, go ahead and fill the gaps inside of that introduction. Let us know a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, so I had way too much fun in high school, so ended up going the Army route instead of the traditional college route. Loved every minute of it. Spent 7 years, wrapped up my career as the operations non-commissioned officer in charge for the NATO Protective Service Detail, which is a giant mouthful, but basically a glorified bodyguard for the NATO commander traveling the world. Hands down, one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. 2011, I think it was, an old war injury kind of caught up with me, and I got medically retired. Moved back home to Ohio, where I had this beautiful plan of taking a year off, going back to school, and figuring out what the hell I wanted to do with my life. And then I think we were home for like 3 or 4 weeks, and my wife's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm knocked up, so shit, gotta change gears." Like, I don't know anything about being a father. All I know is it was expensive, so scrapped the plan of taking a year off and started working in the defense industry. Kind of climbed the corporate ladder on the defense contracting side of things. And then in 2017, we started Battle Sight, is just kind of a way to rapidly innovate and get some products into the warfighter's hands. And
Oh,
that's
that's
kind of been the
that's
focus
great.
lately.
That's great. I mean, I bet there's a lot of gaps to fill with, I'm going to get out, go figure it out in the education world, right? After being medically discharged, which probably in itself was kind of like a shit, right? Getting pushed out medically from the military. Most guys I talk to that have been medically discharged is kind of just like, shit, man, now what am I going to do? It's,
Exactly, man. I went to the doctor and I was like, "Hey, this thing's still bothering my leg. It's still bothering me." And then like 90 days later, we were out of the military, and had a pretty high profile job. Loved every minute of it. Was fairly successful in the military, and then just to kind of be kicked in the nuts and moving back home with no clue what we're gonna do. It was pretty turbulent time.
yeah. Do you regret going to medical about your knee at all?
No, honestly, I think it's the right decision. It still acts up, so I'm not sure I could, kind of keep up with the physical demands of the military life anymore. But I definitely miss it most days.
Yeah, I know it, man. But it sounds like you've done a great job surrounding yourself with other military guys to keep that culture within battle site technologies and other endeavors. So you're doing great as far as keeping the culture alive. It sounds like.
I think that's the most important thing we have going at Battle Site. It's honestly what keeps me up at night, even through this pandemic and everything else. Like, the financial stuff has never kept me up at night, even though there's been some like terrible financial times, building a company. But that culture is way too easy to screw up and has a massive impact, and you just never get it back once it's gone. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
same
that's the
experience. Same experience over here, brother. So yeah, thanks for filling us into that thing because I think whenever you have a newborn on the way, you're kind of just like, oh shit, now it's time to kind of start thinking differently in the world. There's a deeper why. Life isn't just about me anymore. Now it's like, okay, there's a mini me. I've got to
yeah.
go, got to go start creating some stuff. So walk us through that process of getting your wife, pregnant, and then, okay, what were the next like 5 steps that you took or whatever to actually start executing on something quicker?
Yeah. So once we found out my wife was pregnant and not, being out of the military for like, I don't know, 30 days or so at the time, and not really knowing anything, was gotta go land a job, right? I gotta financially provide for her and the baby. We need insurance and all of that stuff. So like most vets, I kind of took the first thing that came across, and it
Mm.
was miserable. I won't lie; it was probably the worst job I've ever had. But it was, a means to an end, right? It provided for my family, gave us what we needed. I did go back and take night classes during that time, and really, I think that first job was kind of the eye opening about, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And as much as that sucks, it's kind of reality. So I spent a lot of time, networking and trying to figure out what was kind of going on in the Dayton region and who were the key players and how could I get in front of them and, let them know who I was so I could, eventually find a better, more stable job.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think there's a lot of veterans, including myself, that fall into that category of when we get out, it's primary stability is all of our decision making, right? How do we get a foundation of solid ground before we start building a house, right?
Exactly.
And then everything goes from there. Got it. So after you got that job, what was it like after that job? Were you just like starting to explore, innovate, the inventional space? Because you have, man. I mean, us Marines are jealous that you invented a pretty innovative crayon. So what got to that?
Yeah. So, the couple of years after I got out, it was a lot of reading and just taking in content and trying to, learn what I don't know. Um, and then actually as a mentor of mine said, "Hey, the Air Force has developed this cool technology. You should take a look at it, see if you're interested to license it and spin out a company." So I took a look at it, actually passed on it the first time. And then the second time when they told me about the infrared capability, jumped all over it. So we licensed 2 patents from the Air Force by people way smarter than me who are actual inventors, and stood up manufacturing for what is now Craytac, which is that infrared crown that you're just talking about. Um, and then just surrounding yourself with smarter people than you. Like, I always loved being the dumbest guy in the room, and that's led to us filing. I think we're up to like 6 patents now that we've personally filed.
Wow.
And then another patent that we've licensed from the Air Force. So now we have this, fairly, I don't want to call it robust because it's only like 10 patents, but still it's, robust in our eyes of this, intellectual property that we now own that we can turn into products and sell.
That's huge. And you guys, this year, you and your team went to Okinawa, right?
Yeah.
To like test something. What was
Yeah.
that experience like?
So that whole entire Nightfall product line has been like the highlight of my entrepreneurial career, to be honest with you. We were doing a Craytac demo. One of the Air Force guys was like, "Hey, can you float this on water?" I said, "Man, I have no clue." So we get a legit like $2 aluminum turkey pan, fill it with water. And we thought we were able to have it float, but turns out it was just sinking. But anyways, because it was so shallow, it really produced a ton of light. So we went off to the New York pitch day, pitched it to the Air Force. They invested. We built a prototype in that first phase of the contract, got some follow-on funding to redefine it, and went out to Okinawa, tested it on the first night. And the goal was to see it from 500 feet altitude directly overhead. And we were able to see it from 2,000 feet altitude from a nautical mile away. So it was a pretty big game changer, but the form factor sucked. So we went back to our hotel room in this little Okinawa town and rebuilt the new prototypes the following day during the day to go out and test that night, which then kind of done a couple of iterations, but it's surpassing everybody's expectations, which is awesome.
And just for the Air Force to, see the opportunity in it and invest, congratulations on that, man, because that's huge. And man, I remember back in Okinawa days, back when I was like 20 years old in the Marine Corps, I wonder how different it is today. Naha used to be crazy, but I can only imagine you going and just putting bright lights in the sea and kind of what, the Japanese may be thinking over there when you're putting bright lights in them, because they were still a little bit bitter when we were down there. And I think it was 2008 or something like that. So that's incredible, man. I mean, one thing that comes to my mind is how many lives it will save, and how many military members or potentially, first responders will be able to, save their fire team lives and stuff like that with that tool, because like, isn't your guys' vision with it to do just that? Is how do we keep people safe in combative environments and stuff like that?
Absolutely. And the whole like use case for the Nightfall product line was we had a F-18 crash into a C-130 in Okinawa, which is why we ended up doing the testing out there. And according to the Marine Corps pilot's Apple Watch, he died at like 9.5 hours after the crash. And we found him at the 11-hour mark. So if we could have just shaved 90 minutes off of that combat search and rescue time, just think of, it's amazing. We saved a life, which is huge. And, what motivates me. But then all like the bean counters are like, well, shit, if we could have caught him 90 minutes earlier, we could have found out what caused the crash. And all of a sudden it's $1 billion problem. So I think for us, it's, saving the guy's life first and foremost, but there's a lot of other people that have a lot of other motivations for this product line as well.
Yeah. And, that's one thing that I have just found through exploring your kind of breadcrumbs leading up to this interview, Nick, is that you are a very humble dude. I expect nothing less from a fellow Midwestern guy that's putting all the glory on other people, man, but it really does start with your initiative. So, kind of going back to the Winfield way, which Ambitious Vet, go and check out that interview. If you want a more in-depth view on Battle Sight Technologies and some of the innovations and what they're doing, go and check out that interview. I'll post a link in the comments below. But Nick, one thing that stood out to me, and many things stood out to me in that interview, is just your lighthearted approach towards business and life, right? Yeah. So this your lighthearted approach towards life and business, right? Because right now it could be we could all easily just be serious about life, right? Like, hey, I have a job loss, or I might have a lot of, 50% revenue loss inside my business. How do you keep a great head on your shoulders, but also a lighthearted approach towards life?
Especially if we learned anything in 2020, it's that so much shit is just out of our hands, right? I can't control a pandemic. I can't control, the government's investments in R&D. That everything that's had an impact on our life and business this year, we had very little control over. And it's, I think kind of back to the whole ambitious mindset of, all right, how do I adapt? How do I overcome? And how do I have fun doing it? Because if it's miserable, I'll just go get a job, right? Let somebody else bear all that risk and everything else. But I think when you surround yourself with the right people and you build that culture, and that culture is the number one thing that you focus on when you build out your team, it just kind of fits and it just works.
So you would say that you're primarily focusing on a lighthearted approach towards building your company culture?
100%, right? We don't we've interviewed some people on paper that would be total rock stars. They just didn't fit our culture. So it's, we hire for culture first, and skills can be taught or learned or absorbed throughout the process. That you can't change somebody's personality. You gotta have those right people around you.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you foster that lighthearted approach inside your company?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, culture kind of starts at the top. So if you come in pissed off and with a bad attitude, it's going to trickle down throughout there. And don't get me wrong, we all have our bad days where stuff gets thrown in the office and whatnot. But I think it's the ability to rebound from those as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I agree. So it sounds like to me that it's kind of just like, hey, we're going to do after action reviews or something like that on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, and maybe self-correct from there. But it seems like it's more of a flexible culture base within the organization. And I think that is key, man, especially during these times, is as far as people, they take failure a little bit more serious during these times. Like they think their next failure will be like the be all end all to their life with these political events, this pandemic, this economical recession that we're dealing with. So, I mean, it sounds like just fostering that environment of like, hey, you know what? We're going to go after this thing. We're going to go after the dot. The details will work themselves out. Let's not overcomplicate the details. Let's focus on the dot. It sounds like you guys have done a great job doing that.
Exactly. And, we fail on every single project. And it's, I think it was Edison or somebody, from the past said, found like 10,000 ways not to do something. That's 100% true in our life, right? One little failure isn't a catastrophe. If you make that same failure over and over again, then it becomes a catastrophe. So embrace those little failures. It's not the end of the world. Pick yourself back up and go figure out another way.
That's good. And it sounds like you guys don't get caught up in the past too much.
No, God, no, man. We failed so many times. We have so much spilled wax in our office.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. You just, adapt and overcome, as corny as that sounds, but that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And we're all taught that at basic training.
That's great. Yeah, man. So I want to kind of shift gears, and thank you for breaking that down, that lighthearted approach, because I think we can overcomplicate the details, and that's when life can be a little bit more serious. Business can be a lot more serious when we're like, it has to be this way. So it sounds like fostering a culture of flexibility is key for Battle Sight Technology. And it just really speaks to why you guys are growing. And, I think that even for the environment that you create where, hey, one thing that you brought up in the Winfield Way podcast is opening up the end user way for the feedback loop. And I think that's a powerful way to lead a company, brother. And I got to acknowledge you for that, right? Because that opens up. Yeah, go ahead.
And one thing, it's not like our end users definitely drive our product innovation. We don't want to build anything that sits in a tough locker or foot locker while they're downrange. But you got to do that same thing internally too. Some of our best ideas that have actually led to patents have came from an hourly technician who was like, hey, I think we can do it this way. And all of a sudden it's a game changer. So you just can't ever shut yourself off to, accepting that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are definitely adapting and overcoming. That's great, brother. So I want to shift gears to one thing that we mentioned in our previous conversation, man, preparing for this, was not using fear as a leadership tactic. And I think there is a lot of fear in our daily behavior. And just if you're leading a small team in an organization as a mid-level manager, or if you're just a startup entrepreneur looking to, lead your end users or tap into your current database to influence them to stay customers, right? What do you mean by not using fear as a leadership tactic? We'll start with that.
Yeah. So, we'd probably do a whole podcast interview just on that one question, but, think back to the basic training days where you're just terrified of these, NCOs who are screaming and yelling at you. How effective was that? At least I know for me, I was just knocking out push-ups, not paying any attention to what the hell they were saying. And it's a little different in the business world, but if you lead with fear and people are terrified to make mistakes and terrified to bring you mistakes, you're missing out on hundreds of opportunities, right? Simple mistakes, happen. We all make them every single day. Right. It kind of goes back to embracing it, figuring out what happened, what caused it, and then finding a solution to it versus having people be terrified and, sweeping stuff underneath the rug, which we all know what happens. It just becomes a much larger problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You're hitting the nail on the head, right? Like, why is it important? People are afraid to take initiative within anything, right?
I would much rather have somebody walk into my office from the shop and say, hey, I just made $1,000 mistake. Here's what happened. And here's how I think we can prevent it from happening again.
Yeah.
And then my only question is, what do you need to make this happen? Go do it. Fix the problem.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting an ambitious vet does to shift their mindset around it is hey, find out a solution to it. Okay. Yeah. This is the circumstance. This is the problem, but what's the solution?
Yeah. And we don't always have the solution to everything. So we have teams around us and mentors and employees and teammates or whatever you want to call them, that there's sometimes not a solution, but I still don't want you to be afraid to come tell me that something bad happened without a solution. Right.
Yeah.
There's 5 other people on the team. Let's go take a look at it, figure out what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Pull out a whiteboard or something. Start brainstorming, right?
Yeah, most utilized resource at Battle Sight is our whiteboards.
Cool, man. That's one of the undervalued resources that I've just found with leadership. Is they're unwilling to give up knowing anything and just let's mind map this problem out as a team. And brother, I just got to acknowledge you for fostering that kind of a culture, because it sounds like any problem you guys hit, it's just well, we don't have the answer. Let's either plug into our end users or, get feedback from them, customers, or let's kind of put our minds together. Right.
Yeah. And I think so much of that has to do with ego, right? You can't have a fragile ego and be a leader, right? You got to take the fall for when somebody else screws up and put it on your back to go out and find a solution. That doesn't mean you have to do it all by yourself. You got a team around you, but you got to kind of break down that ego.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you do that? Because, man, let's face it, us military guys, we get out with an ego. Well, I did. So and it took life experiences and a hell of a lot of failures to kind of break that ego down. But I still do have the pride for serving, which I think a lot of ambitious vets do. But yeah, man, how did you break down that ego?
Yeah. So I wish I could take credit for this, but this was an old hockey coach. I had a pretty promising high school hockey career. Like I said, made a ton of bad decisions in high school. And he was kind of the one that broke it down, my whole ego, right? Hey, you're not as special as you think you are. Like, you're one small part of this team, and I will totally bench your ass because you did something stupid on a Friday or Saturday night. And that, it's very fortunate to learn that at, 16, 17 years old before the military. But during the military, I think that whole selfless service kind of played a huge part into continuing having, a very small ego.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I can only imagine someone coming up to you and just being like, hey, man, you're not that fucking special.
Exactly. I'll never forget that, man. Coach Niehaus.
Just deflated, man. Just deflated. But that's great because at that moment, you probably started working your ass off more than you ever have before.
I did. Yeah. I think that's honestly kind of played into the work ethic thing, right? I hit the locker room or the weights harder, hit the first one on the ice, last one to leave. Just kind of really like that massive screw up in my, junior, senior year of high school was honestly such a foundation for everything. The military just kind of built upon that and put some discipline around it.
Yeah.
Put us in a position that we can go out and execute on today.
Yeah. Ambitious vet. I hope you caught that, just finding ways to kind of fail your way forward very quickly, but also surrounding your daily execution toward your goals with discipline. Like Nick said, just like wrap those soft skills around what your end goal is. And a great resource to even unpackage more of his philosophies around leadership is the Frontline Leadership book, which was published in 2016. Brother, I actually had to do research. I didn't know you guys packaged a journal on top of that.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, man. So tell the Ambitious Vet Network about Frontline Leadership, the journal, and kind of why that's relevant to today's marketplace.
Yeah. So the book was a complete accident, to be honest with you. My wife and kids were out of town doing something with the in-laws, and I figured I'd go clean out our storage barn that we had on the property, just shit that we've accumulated over the years. And I came across some old journals from the military. So I sat on the back of the tailgate, cracked open a beer, and started laughing of all the dumb stuff that we did and all the good stuff that happened in the military. And I really connected the dots that my undergrad and master's, I never referenced those classes ever in my life, but I do reference some of these stories and use these, past experience from the military to make decisions. And so kind of a light bulb went off of, holy shit, my military service was far more valuable than any education I've ever had. So I was telling some people about it and didn't really know what to do with it. I just thought it was really cool and trying to pass on some knowledge. And they're like, dude, you should document this in a book. And so I went out to a conference. There's a couple of publishers there and landed a book deal. And that's kind of how the book came to be. But it's
awesome.
Really short stories. Tried to write them in a way that everybody could relate to in the military, and then how you can actually apply those in the business world.
Oh, that's great. I mean, some of my favorite books, man, are like The Alchemist, which is like told in storytelling mode, like parables and stuff like that. So I think that, people, I know for myself, I learn quicker with storytelling versus just, facts and telling me what to do. And here's the 10 steps to success, not putting dirt on the ebook I wrote, but, it's like, it sounds like it's just experiential knowledge that you've had to gain that created real results in your life in the military, and you repurposed them. Hey, this is how you become an effective leader in the marketplace. So that's awesome. So what would be like one thing from that book that you think would be like relevant to today's time for an ambitious vet to continue to grow and advance in life?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, from the book and kind of reinforced over the last year or so is communication. You have to be transparent with your team. There's so much uncertainty, and that uncertainty causes stress, and stressful people don't make good decisions, and they don't work hard, or they don't work as hard as they're fully capable to. And they're just not, that stress just kind of eats away at the back of your mind and takes away from, every aspect of life. So you have to be communicating constantly, and you have to be transparent. You have to be vulnerable and let people know, what's going on, what the impact is, and how we're going to overcome them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that framework. What's the problem? What's the impact? And then what is the solution, right? I think a lot of people, Tony Robbins talks about how we do more to relieve pain versus pleasure, right? If you get people present to the impact of their behavior, man, I think that they'll do more to, overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great, brother. So, yeah, man. So that's amazing. I know you're doing some amazing stuff with Battle Sight Technologies and also the frontline leadership stuff. I mean, I think I'm probably going to ask Santa for the journal because I love just writing stuff down, man. And I think that's a leadership technique that a lot of leaders inside the corporate world and even in the veteran entrepreneur space, I think a lot of people don't self-reflect enough. Is that kind of why you guys just repurposed a journal, or what was the idea behind that?
Yeah. So the idea was honestly a really stupid one, but here it goes. So I've always been a journaler. I love to write stuff down. I wake up in the middle of the night. There's a notepad with stuff I can't even read. I'm always writing stuff down. And the way I like to write stuff down was I couldn't find it out there on anything that was out there. So it kind of the journal's good for like a quarter, like 90 days. And the first part of it is breaking down your goals from all the way from like 10-year goals all the way down to what can I accomplish in the next, 30 to 90 days to put me on track to those goals. And then it has I can't remember if it's the left side or the right side. It doesn't really matter, but one side's personal, one side's professional with some very prompted questions that you just sit down and fill out. It takes like 30 seconds a day to do it. But it's just a way to document, what did you accomplish? What are you going to accomplish tomorrow? And what are you thankful for, really?
Yeah, no, I think those are questions that are very thought provoking and get your mind sharp for the day. I mean, it sounds like you're sharing your secrets from the Ripplinger effect. I've heard about it, man. I've heard about it. Is that kind of how an ambitious vet can sharpen his mind to just kind of walk into places, land book deals and stuff like that?
It works for me. I hope it works for you guys. I think it's just you just got to be true to yourself, and I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't expect anybody to sugarcoat stuff to me. And if you're kind of open and willing to network and willing to look for opportunities, they're out there.
Yeah.
And then you have to take, violent action and go out and execute on them.
Yeah, that's great, brother. That's great. So we're going to wrap this up, man, with just some traditional things that we wrap the show up with, which is the 3 golden grenades, right? These are 3 wisdom bombs. You can go ahead and sum up the show if you want, Nick, or you can just bring us 3 new wisdom bombs. And this is for any ambitious vet that's been out for at least 3 years, is kind of at that point where they've realized that resume writing, job fairs, and interview prep pay the bills, but they don't actually pay for their passion, right? Or help them gain awareness towards their passion. So what would be 3 gold grenades that you would tell any ambitious vet that's looking to create a more fulfilling life post-military?
Yeah, I think the first thing is find what you're passionate about. For me, that's, still continuing to support the warfighter, through products. But it wasn't something we were able to do overnight. So definitely take care of yourself, take care of your family, and then work that, your passion project on the side until it gets to a point where you get some clear direction on what you want to go out and do and execute on that. I think the second one, especially this year, I think we've hit on it 3 or 4 times now, is just communicate. Whether it's with your spouse or with your kids or in a professional setting, like, just be yourself and communicate the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And then the third one, I can't screw this up. So, I think it's just surround yourself with the right people, man. From Bennett and Chris and Travis from the Winfield Way, just, everybody that's in my life is there for a specific reason that, hopefully I can add value, and God knows they're all adding value to me. And I would not be where I'm at without the little tribe I have.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for those awesome 3 wisdom bombs. Ambitious Vet. This is Nick Ripplinger, president of Battle Sight Technologies LLC and best-selling author of Frontline Leadership and a journal, which I'll have all the links in the show notes below. Nick, where can an ambitious vet go and find out more about you?
Probably Facebook. My email is nick@battlesightTech.com. So that's an easy way to get a hold of me. I won't lie, I don't do the social media stuff nearly as much as I should. That's all done by Bennett. So I think we're on all the Twitters and Instagrams and everything else. But
Nice. So we'll put all those links in the show note below, Ambitious Vet. But Nick, man, just thanks for coming on to the Ambitious Vet Show. I know we're a couple days before Santa coming to town. And brother, just thanks for your grind, and thank you for being an ambitious vet in the trenches, always looking to improve.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Thanks again to Veteran Tax Credits. Whether you are a ambitious vet looking for that next big challenging career in your life, or you're an employer that's looking to hire some of the top talent that the veteran community has to offer, make sure you go and check out veterantaxcredits.com to maximize, if you are a veteran, a better negotiation standpoint as far as negotiating your value. So maybe you land that income goal that you want in your next challenging career, or just if you're an employer, find that hidden thousands of dollars that most Fortune 5000 companies don't find through veteran tax credits. So find out more information at www.veterantaxcredits.com. If you are an employer, make sure to enter in coupon code AV Network. And I promise you guys, you will not be upset. And if you're a vet, let's continue to hold the vision and trust the process. Take care.